One of the songs I do, about 3 songs into my show, is a song from 1987 from an album I made called Radio Chaos, I think. Is it? Yeah, it is, called The Powers That Be. And it's basically a song saying, just explaining my position, which is that the powers that be are unbearably vicious in many ways, and they routinely, lots of powers that be in lots of different countries. This isn't country specific or nationality specific or gender specific or religion specific or specific to any of those defining facts. It's specific to the fact that the ruling class will kill you if they have to. And it doesn't matter when they are or what part of history, you are then a victim of state murder, terror, or whatever. And these 2 women, who I both mentioned, I mentioned a number of people, but they're all victims of state violence in my show. Okay, so, and 2 of them happened to be Anne Frank, who, as we all know, was the young Jewish woman who was finally killed by the Nazis she was found in Amsterdam, and then sent to a concentration camp and died there. And she's very well known because when she was in hiding in Holland, she wrote a diary, and the diary was then found and published, and it's a very, very famous book now. And so on. And the other woman is Shireen Abu Akleh, who maybe some of your viewers don't know, but was a journalist for Al Jazeera. She's Palestinian American, and has worked for many, many years in the occupied territories and in Gaza, carrying news stories there. And she was shot dead by an Israeli sniper a year ago, almost exactly a year ago now. So although their deaths are 77 or 78 years apart, they are nevertheless connected by the fact that they were murdered by a state. Shireen was murdered by the Israeli state of Israel, and Anne Frank, as we know, was murdered by the Nazis, by the state of Germany.
We see like the way these Israeli government officials and pro-Israel lobbyists are attacking you online, Roger, and this is a perfect example of what they do, and it's the kind of thing I get into in my book as well. They selectively show a screenshot of your show where it's, yeah, we can see it on the screen there. Here we go. Danny Danon, who's the Israel's ambassador to the UN, he's showing this screenshot, Shireen Abu Akleh and Anne Frank, and he's sort of focusing in on those 2 names. But actually, you know, the show itself, you have all this whole long list of names of victims of, you know, as you described, state violence there. And it's they're trying to monsterize you, I think.
Well, yeah, they are, but the specific problem with having the names Anne Frank and Shireen Abu Akleh shown in the same context as victims of state violence. The problem here, well, not here, I'm in Prague, but in Germany, is how dare you create this false equivalence between the Third Reich and the state of Israel. Well, all I'm pointing out is that, and I'm not even saying, I don't say, oh, look, these 2 states both murder. They do, that's all. They're murderous. Okay, so are lots of other states. So was South Africa during apartheid. So were we when we were colonial settlers in India and Australia and wherever. So were all the early Americans. We've all done it. We've all been at it. We're all murderers somewhere in our past. But those of us who care about our race, the human race, and the possibility for it to survive, and for us to move forward into the future and go, oh, hold on a minute, maybe it's not great that the state is murdering people with no recourse to the law, no attention to human rights. You know, I actually made a little speech at the gig in Prague last night, and it went out in cinemas all over the world. And what I did, I'll tell you what I did, because I thought I should. I do 2 songs where I'm dressed up in mock. I don't wear an SS uniform, by the way, all you idiot journalists who said that I was wearing an S. It's not an SS uniform. You could tell if it was, because it wouldn't have crossed hammers on the armband. Okay, it would have a swastika or something, if I was, or it would have SS insignia. You know, so that's not what it is. It is, however, an attempt to demonstrate the dangers that are extant in the world now, where populist fascism is gaining a foothold in many countries, exemplified, to pick an example, by Bolsonaro in Brazil, who came within a hair of extending his run as the evil, tyrannical, dictatorial leader of that beautiful country. And so we are standing at the edge of a very, very slippery slope where, because of the failure, if I go on too long, you stop me, Danny, please, but because of the failure of the neoliberal capitalist system, and the fact that most people in the world now are living on the edge of or in deep misery, because the world, the Western world certainly is, and maybe some of the Eastern world as well, is completely organized for the benefit of about 4 unbelievably rich people. And they run the world, and they don't give a F about you or me or anyone out. They don't care about whether we live or die, or they just want to maintain the status quo so that they can go on getting rich and rich. And I know this sounds simplistic, and of course it is, but nevertheless, that is the picture that you see if you look out your window.
Yeah.
And so there are those of us here. Kate is one of them. Ace is one of them. You're one of them. We resist the status quo. It is our duty as human beings to put our shoulders to the wheel of resistance against the status quo. And we are faced with enormous opposition to that task, because they, the oligarchs, own almost all the media, and they use it to try and crush our resistance. That is what is going on with me now. That is why all the English newspapers are going, he dressed up as an SS bloke and paraded around in in Berlin. And so the Berlin police are now investigating him. Maybe they'll throw him in prison. Hurrah, put him up against a wall and shoot him, whatever. So they're trying to create that narrative and hope that I come to a sticky end somewhere. And they're not. None of the journalists in England, by the way, not one of them is studying the details of what they. So when they see in the Jerusalem Post, he wore an SS, they don't even go, really? Where is it? There it is. That's not an SS uniform. It's a pastiche of something that looks like something that somebody in the Third Reich might have worn in the late 30s or during the early 40s. But if you look at it, it's got crossed helmets on it.
I saw so many people online, Roger, like of your supporters, and just people with any kind of common sense, basically saying, you just, of replying to all these kind of politicians and whatnot, condemning you and trying to sort of raise this alarm about you. People just saying, you might as well condemn Charlie Chaplin for The Great Dictator.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of these people probably would, because they're that ignorant.